Alright, so this is going to be a bit of a weird video, but with the release of Scarlet Violet approaching us, I figured I'd do kind of a Pokemon home tour sort of thing. I say recently, it's now been actually over half the year, I think, at this point, where I finished my Living Dex, which includes every Pokemon up to all the forms for Arceus. So I'm all set for Scarlet and Violet, but I just kind of want to show you around here. So let's go ahead and look at my Pokemans. So obviously I have all the Switch games here. My main account. Do have two other accounts there that I kind of like use back and forth to help me, at least for these games, at least get all the Pokemon I need. That way I can have a copy for myself of some of the Pokemon, as well as, like, you know, one for the Living Dex. Yeah, let's go ahead and let's get into to home. So first of all, I have a loading screen. That's what I have. Here we go. I have a transfer box. It's my first box just because I do a lot of transferring for Pokemon Go as well, which is where you'll see a lot of these Pokemon, honestly. Caught a lot of them in Pokemon Go, and then transfer them into home here. So this is where I would transfer them to, just to make moving them easier. Otherwise, they kind of like moved kind of scattered throughout the actual Living Dex, which made it kind of a pain. So just have the first box just being a blank box for me to transfer Pokemon into. Now we actually get into it. So as you'll see here, and it's going to go into my box spaces, you'll see here most of the Pokemon, or at least a lot of the Pokemon, have come from Pokemon Go. So, you know, the first 150, you know, probably at least half of them probably came from Go, but the rest of them most likely. So this one different. This one was I got from Pokemon Home itself as like a gift or something. I don't remember what it was. And for the first 151, except for Mew, basically everything came between Home, Pokemon Go, or Let's Go Eevee is what they basically all came from. Except for, like I said, Mew, where I got from BDSP for having a save of that. Gen 2, I think I got a lot of these again in Pokemon Home, and yeah, a lot of them I also got in. Sorry, I got a lot of them for Pokemon Go, and a lot of them I got from Gen 6. So the two the games that I got the Pokemon the most from, the three, I guess, be Pokemon Go. I lost my train of thought. I guess it would be, well, 3 if you count Omega Ruby, but I kind of just used Omega Ruby now the Sapphire to just get most of the Pokemon. But yeah, Gen 6, I guess, would be better answer for Gen 6 and then Pokemon Go. Because between the 4 games in Gen 6, you could get basically everything except for Mythicals, which we'll get into later, in Gen 6. So basically got that what I didn't get in Pokemon Go, got basically in Gen 6. So again, most of these are from Hoenn. Actually, this was in Kalos, but again, Gen 6, or in Pokemon Go. So, and again, the Mythicals here. So this was right around the time when they had the cell. There was like a what was it? It was like the big event for Gen 2 and Pokemon Go, where they released another Celebi. So I got the Celebi from the first special research, and I got another Celebi, as well as a shiny Celebi. But because I had a spare one, which I'm not going to really need 2 Celebis in Pokemon Go, I transferred one to here. So that's where I got my Mythical for Gen 2. As you can see here, you know, Pokemon Go, I think this is probably from Omega Ruby. I think that's where you get Ho-Oh. But yeah. I think that's where I got the dogs as well. And again, Gen 3. Again, mostly Pokemon Go or Gen 6. Like the remakes. And then, again, the Mythicals. Deoxys, actually, I did get from Mega Ruby. Since you get one in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire if you complete like the full thing. The Jirachi, though, came from BDSP for one of the special things that you get for it. Then we get into Gen 4, which was the most pain because of the Mythicals. So again, most of them Pokemon Go or Gen... Why is that mark? Did I get these in trades? I've got these in trades. That'd probably be about right. Anyway, Pokemon Go or Gen 6, again, for the vast majority of these. But the Mythicals in here, so you have so many Mythicals in this. So you have Fion, Manaphy, kind of technically, Darkrai, Shaman, and Arceus. And then Gen 5 is just as bad. But Gen 5 kind of has a bit of a thing. So Gen 4, thankfully, had the, again, like the special egg that you get for BDSP for an event. Same thing for Darkrai and Shaman, but I think I just got these from Arceus. Yeah. I did 2 playthroughs of Arceus, so I could get Arceus for that. So from my second playthrough, that's where I got Shaman, Darkrai, and Arceus. I could have gotten Manaphy and Fion from there, but I had already kind of gotten those from BDSP, so. Then Gen 5 Mythical. So first of all, I hate that it starts off with the first Pokemon being a Mythical. It's kind of annoying. But Gen 5, if you own the original games from Gen 5, we do the mystery gift, which is what most of the Gen 5s are. You had to get them from mystery gifts. You could actually change your DS's IP to be your DNS, sorry, your DS's DNS, to be a particular location that you can still basically get the mystery gifts from. So, got one for Victini, got one for Keldeo. Actually, no, I got Keldeo actually from Shield. But that's where I got Meloetta as well. Otherwise, most of the legendaries you can catch elsewhere. Genesect, I had like 3 of them, 4 of them in Pokemon Go, thankfully. One of them was pretty bad, so transferred that over. But yeah, at least you can get Keldeo in Gen 8. We're gonna get to some more paints with Mythicals later, but basically that's what this whole thing amounted down to. Is it took a little bit of time to get everything, but most of it wasn't too bad, except for Mythicals. My favorite thing about the Pokemon Go transfers is that you get some weird things like this, how my Chespin is a higher level than my, sure, yeah, I can't pronounce it, and then barely lower level than my Chestnut, but my Froakie is lower level than Frogadier, which is a higher level than Micro Ninja. Just Pokemon Go things. I also wanted to have a thing where all the Pokemon in my living deck's actual nickname was just the Pokemon's name. So I basically made sure that happened as well. So there were a couple of Pokemon that like I got from events that I was just like, I can't use because like the event has like a nickname, so I can't use that. Or if I got like a trade and it didn't have the Pokemon's actual name, I was like, okay, I can't use it. Stuff like that. Don't know why I decided to make that a rule, but I did, so here I am. Gen 6, again, this is where I start to get more to the actual captures than Pokemon Go transfers. It's because Gen 6 wasn't quite as, as released as all the Pokemon in Pokemon Go. So I had a lot of Pokemon that I just, actually caught in Gen 6 and Pokemon X or Oraz and transferred into here. So this is where we're starting to get into the decline of the Pokemon Go Pokemon. So this is where we really start to get into the painful mythicals. So the mythicals in Gen 6 can't use the DNS trick. That doesn't work for Oraz or X and Y. And they are time gated for like their actual releases. So for those, basically had to, let's say, trick the system to basically getting event Pokemon currently that are no longer available. It's similar to the DNS trick, but there's a whole lot more things that went into it. I won't get into all the details, but essentially all the Pokemon are in here, if I would have played at the time of their release, would all be legitimate Pokemon. Technically they still are, because if they were illegitimate, they would be able to be saved into Pokemon Home. So had to get creative with it, but basically they're as close to legitimate mythicals as you can currently get in this day and age of Pokemon. So that's Gen 6. Whenever I started doing the Living Dex, Gen 7 was not in Pokemon Go, so basically going year forward, everything is basically let's see here. Oh, Meltan. I was gonna say, why is it there? But Meltan, right? Everything else is basically strictly through the games themselves. So played Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, got all the Pokemon in those. I don't know if I finished my thought, but yeah, Pokemon Go didn't have Gen 7 yet. Anyway, so played through Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, basically got everything I could there. It's kind of needed both of them because I need to get a Soul Gate. That Pokemon in Lunala. As well as you can get a Cosmog in both of them. So I basically needed to get a Cosmog in each of those. And basically have each one. However, I did actually get trades for these two. I did the GTS, I think. I just put in some Pokemon Go legendaries and got these traded to me, so it works. They met the qualifications of their nicknames being just their normal name, so excellent. Again, sort of had to use the trick for Marshadow and Zeraora, like I did for the Gen 6 Mythicals. Magearna you can still get, you just have to scan a QR code. Thankfully, it's not really time gated for some reason, unlike Marshadow and Zeraora. Yeah. And then Meltan, pretty easy to get. This one was like the home transfer at the time, so when you transfer to Pokemon from Pokemon Go to Pokemon Home, you got a Melmetal, so just using that one. Like I said, since I played both Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, got all the Ultra Piece from that. Pretty straightforward. Then Gen 8. Again, I did 3 playthroughs of those for some reason. But that way allowed me to get, both of the Regieleki, Regidrago, Kubfu and Urshifu, both the horses, etc. Sarut, again, wasn't playing at the time whenever the event was happening. However, there was something else that happened that allowed me to get, to basically trade for an event Pokemon. So, still have the Gen 8 Mythical there. Then we get into the Pokemon from Arceus, So, like Weirdeer, Cleaver, Ursaluna, Basculegion, Sneasler, Overquill, etc. Then we're going to go through some blank space here, just because, preparing for Gen 9, however many Pokemon are going to be in there. And then I got all the unknowns. These are just basically like the different formed Pokemon. So I have an unknown where it's supposed to be in the actual Pokedex order, but then, a copy of each letter and the question mark and exclamation mark in there as well. Then the Alolan form Pokemon, the Galarian form Pokemon, and the Hisuian form Pokemon. I threw Basculin in there. It's technically not in there. However, there's just normally the red stripe and the blue stripe, and Hisuian had like a white stripe form, so I just threw it in there because why not? I don't have all the other forms of Pokemon that have like multiple forms. So, like for example, Oricorio, I don't have the 4 or 5 forms of that. For like Sawsbuck or whatever in Gen 5. Yeah, Deerling and Sawsbuck, I don't have like the different natured forms for that depending on the seasons. That's where I'm like, it's not really a true other form. Like, it's not like a regional form. And there's not enough of it really for me to put in the effort to get all the different forms. So that's kind of like where I drew the line at for that I didn't get those different forms, but got the the regional forms at least. But it's my living deck, so it's my rules basically, sort of thing. Now let's get into so I guess first of all I have some like Pokemon that I have that whenever I want to do like a wander trade or anything like that. I have some also like other Pokemon here that I can trade that are more of like legendary or shiny or anything like that. Mythical, but I don't think I can just trade that because it's a mythical. Oops, keep doing that. And then yeah, more special trades, more stuff like that. Then we have some special Pokemon in here, basically like other event Pokemon that didn't really fit in with there because I don't want the living dex to have like some shinies in it and some not. So some of the event Pokemon was like, I'm not going to because they're shiny, so it doesn't really fit in with that. This is like the Marshadow that had like the different name, different Pikachus that you got from different events. Same with like the Cloyster, Zorak, like the Dracovishes that we've gotten from like the Gen 8 things. Just random Pokemon that don't fit in with the living dex because they either have one or these are gone through some other special needs, like shinies and stuff like that. And here's just some extra Pokemon that I have to be sorted. Then the last thing I want to get into, the ones that are more near and dear to my heart, are my old friends here. So this is basically as close as I get at the moment to my original Gen 3 team. So this is my original. So ignore the date. The date is because that's the date it took whenever I actually transferred them into Pokemon Home. So that's not the actual date I caught it. It just whenever I transferred into Pokemon Home, it kind of like took that date. This is my original Blaziken that I used in my original Gen 3 game. Yeah. Love this guy. Moveset, not super great. Most of the stuff for the Pokemon I use aren't going to be like Ivy or Eevee or anything like that. I don't really pay too much attention to it. And this is also as close as I can get to my original Hall of Fame. So like my Gen 3 game doesn't have the original clear anymore because I've just cleared the Hall of Fame or I've cleared the Elite Four so many times it doesn't tell me what the original one was, or if it does, it's marked it as the second clear. Don't know if that's a bug or what it is, but regardless, this is basically as close as I could get. So, Blaziken, my Kyogre, my Ludicolo, sure. I'm named Duck Dude. Got my Sharpedo. And then my Pelipper. And then my Megaran. Then we got my Ruby playthrough for Gen 3, which I use. Also, just want to go back here. So, some of these Pokemon, like Mewtwo and Articuno, I didn't actually use, I believe, in my original Hall of Fame clear. I just have them listed here because I used them at one point, because I used like most of like some of these Pokemon in my original Ruby Hall of Fame clear. So these are just Pokemon that I have used to cleared at some point, or used to clear this one. Basically, these two are kind of like, these two lines are kind of like interchangeable-ish. So we got my Sceptile, just my starter for Ruby, and Rayquaza, Mewtwo, because I didn't understand the thing of legendary spam, so I just used whatever Pokemon I wanted. Look at that nature though for Groudon. Ooh. Nature's looking back, some of the natures through these Pokemon are really bad. Like, look at that. Look at that abysmal nature. Oof. Disgusting. Anyway. Oh boy. Yeah, listen, I didn't really know. Didn't know. It's just the Pokemon I used. I'm gonna have to censor some of the names here. For the owner tag. So now we're getting into the Emerald playthrough that my brother and I did. So we have our Washtop ShamWow, Groudon Magruber, Kyogre just Kai, Quasi for our Rayquaza, which we caught with a net ball for some reason, okay. Our Ampharos that has no moves for some reason. And then our Walrein to Walrus. Those are my three Gen 3 playthroughs. So Sapphire, Ruby, Emerald. Then we have my Gen 5 playthrough. This is actually kind of what I was waiting for the longest. Because I'd played through Gen 5, but I actually hadn't gone back and, with the story of Gen 5, you like fight the Elite Four, but you don't like fully clear it. Then like story takes place, and then you go back and have to fight the Elite Four kind of like a second time, but their levels are like way higher, and so I actually had to do quite a bit of grinding to actually be able to fight them, because my Pokemon are like, level 50 or something like that, and like you're like, okay, I'll go and actually fight the Elite Four now, and they're all like level 70 or 75 or whatever. So okay, great. Grinding time. So I got my my Imbor here. Got Firehog. A Ferrothorn Heavy Plant. My Crocodile Landcroc. I've also, so these first three are basically like my old playthroughs, and basically that's for like the longest time that was the last Pokemon game I played. It wasn't until like years after, like probably wasn't until like even Gen 7 released before I actually kind of started kind of getting back into Pokemon. Played like Alpha Sapphire for a while, then kind of fell off of it again, and then like late 2021 I got back on it, and it's basically been playing a lot of Pokemon since then. So these top 3 rows are like probably decades between like my next playthroughs. So whenever I've recently started playing Pokemon, I've been trying to like, all of my teams have been trying to actually give nicknames to. That's why like some of these, like my old ones, some of them had names, some of them didn't. But for my later playthroughs here, for my last few playthroughs that I've had, try to nickname all of them. There'll be a couple where I didn't. I'll explain why. Yeah, got my my Embor Firehawk, my Ferrothorn Heavy Plant, my Crocodile Landcroc, my Galvantula Spidey Snipe, and my Reuniclus Gooey Child. Don't ask about the names. It's just whatever came to my mind. Something else I've tried to do in like my more recent playthroughs is I've tried to not reuse the same Pokemon. I try to use as different as I can. There'll be a couple repeats in here, but like I said, I'm trying to. That's why I used, I didn't even use this one. So I got my Swan and not Pelipper. Ran out of characters, so I could put the second P in there, but would have liked to not use this Pokemon because it was kind of poopy doo doo. But trying to mix it up and use Pokemon I haven't normally used, so that's what we get. Then we have my Pokemon X Pokemon that I used, my Greninja Henry. So this playthrough, I named my Greninja after the Animal Crossing frog Henry. But then after I did that, I was like, okay, well, I feel like all of my Pokemon now have to kind of have like generic white dude names now. So we have Bill, we have Mark, we have Joey, we have Kurt, we have Dale. So, the reason these years seem off, by the way, I didn't actually play in 2011. My DS time kind of got like reset, and so I just didn't notice until after I caught Pokemon. So that's why the years seem different for this. Yeah. So, but this team was probably one of my favorite teams. You can tell because I got most of them pretty high leveled. I actually really liked using this team. I never really used, had never used H/Slash before, never used Greninja before. Certainly hadn't used Gallade before. Kinda used Salamence before, but not really. I never was really a Bulbasaur kid. And then, again, this was a new Gen 6, so I never used that before. So yeah, this was a really fun team. This Pokemon actually kind of sucked. That's why Dale's such a low level. You just get one shot all the time. He's just too slow. He's not tanky enough. Just kind of gets destroyed. Venusaur was nice because could Mega Evolve. And then the other four were just absolute behemoths. This was definitely the real heavy hitters of the team. So let's now get into my Omega Ruby, or my Alpha Sapphire Pokemon. There's actually two here for Alpha Sapphire, just because I was like, which one should I use? But I kind of use two teams a lot, so is what it is. So this is actually when I started getting back into it. So 2016 is when I really started to kind of get back into Pokemon for a little bit. And then basically by like mid-2017, I'd already fallen back off. So it is what it is. So had my Blaziken, HAL 9000. I still hadn't really comprehended, by the way, IVs, EVs, or natures, or anything like that. So some of these might be pretty bad. It's actually ended up being pretty good. Our Gardevoir Borg, could you tell I was kind of getting into Star Trek at the time? And I had my Manectric Bolt. Had my Latias Air Force 1. And I had to rename my Kyogre Waterlord again, just like I did my original Gen 3. Had to. Then my Armaldo, I never nicknamed it, but by the time I transferred, it was kind of too late. But that's my second playthrough. So this is my lineup for my first remake playthrough. And then I use this lineup here for my second clear, basically, of Alpha Sapphire. So we got my Metagross, my Salamence, so there's our first repeat, really. Crocodile, again, our first repeat. also just love these names. Got Miss Slammy. Then Interior Crocodile Alligator I Drive a Chevrolet Movie Theater. Got Dugong 2.0 or Walren, which is another kind of repeat, but yeah. And Dusclops, again, another repeat, but again, hadn't really used him in a while. I ran this with an Eviolite, which I actually learned how to understand EVs a little bit at this point, and that's why our years are kind of super messed up, by the way. We got our Vileplume and Radish. So, there's my second Alpha Sapphire playthrough. Then we got my Omega Ruby playthrough here with Swampert, because I actually, the playthrough I did with my brother, I didn't really play that one too much. It was a lot more him, so I hadn't really fully used a Swampert in my playthrough. So I wanted to use one for this instead of using the Sceptile. Then again, I was trying to use Pokemon I hadn't really used before, so, you know, I never used an Arbantan because at this point I hadn't played Gen 5. Also never used Rotom because I didn't play Gen 4. Shiftry, which is in Gen 3, but I just never really used before because it was still pretty meh, but no, it was interesting to use. Never used a Skarmory before. And then I have Grabby Hands here, which is basically just used for HMs. But I wanted to have him because he learns perfect TMs that I wanted to make use of. And he also has Pickup, which was really nice to use. So now we're getting into my Gen 7 playthroughs. So none of these are going to have nicknames because I actually started with the Decidueye, but I never actually... What was I going to say? Let's start with the Decidueye, sorry, but I also basically started 2 other playthroughs where I got my Litten and my Popplio, and I basically transferred them to the Pokemon what's the Pokemon Bank, and then basically transferred them back, but I forgot to nickname them at the time. It decided to reset the saves. It was too late, so I was like, I'm not going to bother with it. I'll just, you know, not have any nicknames this time. So I had all 3 starters for that, and then also a Xurkitree, which was when I basically bought the game used, and I was in the used game. I was like, and I'll just transfer it over. That way I can put it into Pokemon Home, but actually just ended up using it later on whenever I got to a high level. Then Tyranitar, which was surprisingly, I had never really used a Tyranitar before. Nature is absolutely abysmal. Let's not talk about that. But yeah, I had never really used a Tyranitar before, so used one of those, and then Crabominable, which I was like, oh, this seems good in theory. I need Ice moves, I need a fighting type. That sounds great. Ooh, is it bad? Whenever it could move, it did great. You can't see the moves I had on it, but I had like actual like punch moves, so I got to take advantage of Iron Fist. It did work when it got to go, but it's slow and it's basically weak to everything. So it just had no chance of ever doing anything. Which is why it's significantly lower level than everything else. Yeah. And then my other Gen 7 playthrough, I wanted because I had in my Gen 6 playthrough of X, I had all dudes. So not only with generic, white dude names, I made sure they were all dudes. I did the opposite in this one, made sure that everyone was a girl, and let me tell you, resetting for this was kind of a pain. But I wanted to go with it, so I got Miss Kitty, I got Gundam Pilot, I got Armored Queen, I got Burby Girl, I got Not So Sandy, and I got Miss Step on You. Yeah, this was a fun playthrough. I really wanted to use a Toucannon in my first playthrough, but I just couldn't get it to work with the team. I already had a flying type. Couldn't really justify kind of getting like a second one. Well, technically not a flying type, but had flying moves and was a flying type at one point, so really couldn't justify it. But as soon as I started my second playthrough, I was like, okay, I'll get Toucannon this playthrough. And I liked using Toucannon. It's too bad it's not too great. I like Skill Link as an ability, but it's just kind of slow. What's kind of the story of Gen 7? It's just a lot of Pokemon that are just kind of slow. Like this, like Alolan Sandslash, like I loved this setup. Like I used Iron Defense and Swords Dance and basically everything just like one shot and I could just sweep super well, but it's weak to so many things, especially 4 times weak to fire and fighting. Kind of rough with that. And it's not super defensive. Well, not super especially defensive, which is the problem for a lot of fire attacks. It feels like everything had. Yeah. So this was another fun playthrough. Obviously, I didn't get the commode till late in the playthrough, but it was still fun to use. I also really liked using Golisopod. Yeah, this was just a fun team to use. And then let's get on to the Switch games. So I played through Pokemon Shield 3 times. So my first team I had Inteleon, which is Emo Child, of course. We got my Toxtricity, which was Brittany Spear. The S wouldn't fit, so it was just Brittany Spear. Love this Pokemon. I got Lord Burpee the 4th, which also fun. Love using Corviknight. Colossal, Flavicle. It's kind of just there. I mean, it was nice whenever it could actually move, but just slow and super weak. I didn't have Steam Engine because it just didn't feel like it took it that well, so I went with Flame Body instead. Then Hatterene, really didn't use Hatterene too much. Just again, super slow. That was just kind of the story of this team for the most part. It was pretty slow. I got Mad Squidward if I can talk. Yeah, just kind of really slow team towards the end here. Definitely used these two probably the most. Just between these two, just so much damage output, which was really nice. I'm going to use Hatterene sometimes as well, but it's just slow again. Then my second playthrough, which was basically just the Rillaboom show for the most part. So for my 2 other Gen 3 playthroughs, I was basically just trying to get to the end game as quick as possible. So I basically transferred over the starters that I had from these two to my original playthrough and just grinded up levels. So it was basically just one-shotting everything with Rillaboom and just picking up some extra Pokemon along the way for like coverage. So got a Stereo Bat here, or Noivern, Excadrill, which was fun to use. I actually liked using Excadrill a lot. The Underminer. We got Orbeetle Spherical Bug, which I really barely used. Just mainly used to like kind of set up screens and switch something else back in. For the most part, it's just sweeping with Monkey a lot. Dreadnought was just kind of there as well. Miss Turtle. And then we have the Deceiver, who was like, okay, I am going to get a Sylveon. Because I had a Let's Go Eevee save with this. I was like, okay, I got an Eevee early on, I'm gonna get this a Sylveon. I didn't learn till much later that that Eevee does not evolve. So I just had this for so long, just waiting for it to become something. It never did. So I just named it Deceiver, because I don't think I ever really used the Eevee, because I was waiting and just nothing ever happened. So sad. Then my third playthrough of it got Burn in Your Buns. Cinderace again basically was just the mad carry from Cinderace for the most time, with just a backup from a couple other Pokemon like Panda Express came in clutch a few times for sure. I just love the Iron Fist ability, as you can see. You got Grampy Smith, who didn't really use too much. Just kind of chilled there. Also really didn't use Galarian Weezing too much. I did use Colonel Smokers, by the way. These are definitely the best and the worst names, was this Gen 8 playthrough. Colonel Smokers, I like a lot. Froggers, let's go. Then we had Mr. Rhyme, who, you know, was there. I'm not going to talk about the name. Just kind of there, didn't really use it all. Anyway, let's get into the BDSP playthrough. Had my my Empoleon, which I named Coco. After the stuffed animals it got me. That's a pink one. Yeah, not the best nature. I just want to throw a special attack up, even though it needs to be defensive as well, but, you know, details. We got our Luxray that was like just Ray Lamal. Yep, just got like the only other fire type that's in the game because I needed a fire type, and this was the best I got. Didn't really use Rapidash too much. The real main, the heavy hitters were definitely, obviously, Coco. The Luxray was big. The Gassy Boy was huge. Gassy Boy basically single-handedly got me through Cynthia. Just between Storm Drain and Earth Power, Muddy Water, it was huge. Gassy Boy was king. And we got Always Leg Day, which definitely did some work. And then also we got Sundino, the Staraptor, because I'm super original with nicknames. Because, you know, like Star is like a sun, it's like the sun, and Raptor is anyway. My second playthrough, got Sniper Monkey. Wanted a fire type early on this time. We got AutoZone. I actually didn't ever complete the second playthrough. I basically was like, okay, I need to get this so I can get Arceus after I get it in Legends Arceus again, and then I realized, wait, I already have to catch it anyway, why would I do this? So basically got halfway through this playthrough and just gave up, but I figured I'd still transfer the team here. That's why Pretty Birdie is not a Togekiss, it's just a Togetic. And our Gold Duck, because like gold, it's like a, you know, like silver is like a metal, and then duck is a type of okay. We got Honchkrow, which is Witch of the Waste from Howl's Moving Castle, I think, yes. Then we got Rose Garden. And then we get to the last set of friends. There's, you know, other Pokemon in here as well. So like my original Shiny, this is just Pokemon I've used throughout other playthroughs. A lot from like the original Gen 3 games that I used, but didn't really fit in with the rest of the stuff. A lot of them are just legendaries that I brought over. But like Mike, he was in Gen 2. Lynette I used in Gen 7. Meow, Steelio Trash, etc. The last ones are my Pokemon I used in Legends Arceus. Why is this video so long? I need to hurry up and wrap this up. So I got my Typhlosion, which is Fire Blasted. Got my Cleaver, all my axes. So it's like a double for like the George Strait song, all my axes. And then also the Lord of the Rings reference in my axe, just kind of mix the two. Anyway, got Electivire the Thunderman, Gardevoir Megamaid, and then Lucario Steel Furry. Oh, and we also got Landshark. Did I use the same joke twice? No, I thought Landcroc was what I named the crocodile. This was Landshark. Okay, we're good. I thought I used the same joke twice. Can't do that. But again, try to stick with the theme. Didn't use the Pokemon too much. Gardevoir was kind of the exception to that, just because I wanted the huge queen herself. Yeah. Anyway, then we have my second playthrough where I had the the Decidueye, which was Samurai Owl. And we got my Porygon Z. Again, tried to use Pokemon I hadn't really used before. So I just named error.bin because computer binary file, whatever. Anyway, we got Togekiss, which again I haven't used before. Empoleon, you know, I've used the once in that Gen 4 playthrough, so I kind of wanted to use. I wanted a Steel type, and I was like, just gonna go with Empoleon. Never used a Magmortar before, so we got Tim Curry here. There's a Fire type. Had never used a Rhyperior before, so we got Spiky Rock here. Yeah, just so that's a bunch of Pokemon that I used in games. Again, tried to not reuse the same Pokemon too much. And for the most part, I feel like I succeeded in that. But yeah, that was my tour of Pokemon Home. Hope you enjoyed. I'm sorry that this was nearly 50 minutes of me rambling. Probably incoherent, I can't speak. Why am I trying to do this today? It was me trying to speak for about 50 minutes about Pokemon. I am so sorry if you got to the end of this. But I hope you enjoyed me rambling. And hope to see you the next time. Okay, bye.